watching Four Sisters Live.
Wow.
I'm Wyoming.
I'm Linda.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm Florence.
And we are here on our part 2. We have this awesome gentleman, Mr. William Cunningham, here. And we're so happy because he was on our part 1. Mm-hmm. This is why he's already still here, because we wanted to extend this conversation about what's going on. He's an economist. He was telling us in our part 1 about what's going on in our women in business, our black women in business, how we're growing, how we play such a great, great part, intricate part of our society, what's happening in our community. We are really growing, but there's still some things that we got to still do. And there's some investments that's going on, and we want to be a part of that. We spoke, a question was asked about the Bitcoin. Right. And he was explaining to us about Bitcoin. So can you continue to let us know about that, please?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I mentioned in part 1, Bitcoin is digital money that was created by someone who was frustrated with the lack of regulators looking out for people when it came to regulating banks. So they realized that the technology allowed you to create your own money, create your own monetary system that was managed by people, not by governments. And it's taken off because there are a lot of other people out there who are similarly frustrated with the lack of concern for human needs that the banking system shows. So what I was saying was Bitcoin, there are a couple of other digital currencies, but Bitcoin is the big one. And I was recommending that people go to Coinbase.com, open an account. I'll send out a link. I'll post a link to your
that'll be great. That'll be great.
You know, get $100 worth, just so that you can see how it works. Now, the other thing I was talking about is what's going to happen to drive the price of Bitcoin up. So, according to our economic forecasts, what's going to happen is you're going to get a major hack at a major bank, like a Wells Fargo. So if you woke up tomorrow and somebody told you that Wells Fargo had gotten hacked for $1 billion, you'd be like, yeah, I kind of expected that, you know. But what that's going to do is that's going to drive people to Bitcoin as a safer alternative, strangely enough, a safer alternative to the current monetary and regulatory system. So that's what we think is going to happen. We think everybody should have a small, you know, don't bet the house on it, don't bet the farm on it, but $100, $200, sure, you know, just so that you have some position. You have an asset you can use.
I've been really investigating, you know, Bitcoin for a year now, and I'm about to go to Coinbase.com because my company, Prime My Body, they're doing, this is how powerful this money is, they're doing an asset offering.
Right.
They're going to take the company public. They were just on the NASDAQ. There was actually a crypto summit 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And that was the first of its kind. So you know it's serious when the big boys are really, they're there, they're meeting, they have this big dinner, and this is going to be an annual event. And our company was one of those that inspired it. And we're doing that with the hemp oil. So we're taking two products, the hemp products, natural health, and crypto, and we're going to take the company public. So anybody that's in our company, and we can actually buy Bitcoin. He wants us all to be able to, and he told us to go to Coinbase as well.
Oh, is that right?
And any other company.
So,
He's not making it up. I was last. They did a 5-hour, and I was a 5-hour online webinar just showing the different people who are in crypto, and they were talking about it. So it's an amazing world.
Yeah.
I'm even taking classes online, you know, to learn about it and how to, and that's how we all have to do to educate you, because it's complicated but not complicated. You know, but the more you hear. But I wanted to ask you, what is a fork? Because they said that Coinbase last week had a fork.
Yeah, so that refers to the way that the cryptocurrencies work is there is a network of people who keep track of transactions. You know, what happens? Joe buys 5 Bitcoin, Sally sells 2 Bitcoin. There's a database. It's called a blockchain.
Right.
And basically what happens is at some point some people disagree about transactions on that blockchain. They say, listen, I don't think Sally actually sold 2 Bitcoin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork. I'm going to, the old line database goes this way. I'm going to have a database that goes this way without Sally's transaction. That's the only difference. But that requires you to create a whole new stream, a whole new database. Because remember, the old database has Sally's transaction in it. Right. Everybody thinks that happened. So that's the difference. That's what is called a fork.
So how does that affect a person who has bought coins on Coinbase?
So if you bought coin on Coinbase, it does not affect you. Oh. This fork, the new one without Sally's transaction, is a whole new coin. Oh. That's another digital currency. So what you might do is you might get some of that. But if you have the old school, the old non-forked, if you're part of that transaction network, then you're not affected. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And again, that's another way that banks and regulators have chosen to try to slow the adoption of this, because they know that. Right. This is, I mean, if you think 20, 30, 50 years in the future, this is what people are going to use to transact business. You know, 50 years from now, the Bitcoin 3.0, Bitcoin 4, whatever it is, we don't know. But it makes sense to get involved now so that you understand how it works.
And another reason why they did is because we're going public, and we just partnered, and we're going into Japan with our product. Japan, China, and they all are already using crypto. They're using cryptocurrency. So for us to be able to do transactions, build our businesses in Japan, and China, Canada, and all those other places, that's why the company decided to go. So this is real.
Makes perfect sense.
Well, is Bitcoin the new gold? Because at one point everybody said invest in gold, invest in gold. So is this the new gold?
It's the new digital gold. The thing with gold is that gold is a physical commodity. So you know you can hold it. You know how much gold there is. The difference with the digital currencies is that they're all electronic. There's no asset that you can attach. Now, the way that the creator of Bitcoin dealt with that issue was by limiting the number of Bitcoin that will ever be created.
Okay.
He limited it to 21 million. So that's the absolute top line limit. There'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin.
Okay.
Now, what that means is that as Bitcoin grows in adoption, as more people use it and use it and use it, if right now it's at $5,000, and let's say there are 10 million people who are using Bitcoin, when you get to the point where there are 100 million people using Bitcoin, then you know that that price is going to go up,
Right.
you know, because there's a limit in terms of the actual number of Bitcoin that are going to be created. Now, that's other things equal. That's an economic term called ceteris paribus. You know, and I'm probably mispronouncing that. But it means other things equal. Now, that assumes that, you know, governments around the world don't get together and drive prices down or make it illegal, as the Chinese government did initially. But the Chinese government recently reversed themselves, and they said that Bitcoin, it was okay to hold Bitcoin. So that gives you some feel for where this is going. And I don't want black people to be left out. I especially don't want black women to be left out of this. It's important to really understand what's going on and to get
So
it
how much is the government involved in our black women businesses anyway? Because we want to get back to about the black women so high.
That is a great question. They try to limit you. The bottom line, they you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know?
Right.
But they don't give you the support. You would think with a group of people who are creating businesses at the fastest rate ever, you know, employing about 500,000 people in their own businesses, you know, $56 billion in revenue. You would think that the federal government would say, hey, we're going to allocate $50 billion to finance these businesses since they're creating. And you know what happens when you all create businesses? Crime goes down, other things go down, you know, everybody is better off. But the programs that they have in place, the SBA, Small Business Administration being one, aren't really as impactful or as powerful as they should be. In other words, you need more capital. And you need that capital to be distributed fairly, you know. And when I say fairly, what I mean is that groups like this, you all know who's out there, and you know who is credit worthy and who is not credit worthy. You know people that have good ideas, and you could, if you had a slug of capital, you could allocate money to those businesses. Oh yeah, we know, you know, the pie company, for example. Oh, we know her, you know, we know she needs a stove. So what is that, $1,000 a month?
So
you know,
Put our money together.
We need to put the money together.
Put the money together.
We need to do that.
Yeah, that's
And that's an investment.
that's an investment.
And her company is going to
So
help her move forward. And you know, other cultures do that, and
they
we
do.
have got to learn to
that
do
is
that
true.
to support our people so that they can move forward because they're going to bring us with them.
But you know what? That could be another arm of Sister for Sister Network. The support, financial support for other sisters.
Yeah.
Like we come together and maybe we, as Sister for Sister Network, can do an investment.
That crowdfunding. We need a
Crowdfunding.
class on that.
Yeah, we need a class on that.
Something
You know,
so
to help
we
the
could
sisters,
learn
other sisters
how
that
to
have
do that.
ideas and need things to make them successful because it's us helping us. Who's going to do it?
Right.
We have a class on Udemy. And again, if you reach out to me, anybody in the Sister for
Spell
Sister
that.
Network, UDEMY.
UDEMY.
Google William, or look up William Michael Cunningham on Udemy. Anybody in the Sister for Sister Network that wants to take the class, normally it's about $20, but we'll make that class available for free.
Oh, wow. That's
Wow.
Class available for free.
So what
to
is
the
the class?
members.
What does it mean?
The class is on how to crowdfund.
Okay.
How to use
we need that.
crowdfunding to
Yeah, we
raise
need
money
that.
for businesses, for initiatives, you know, that sort of thing. On Udemy, it's one of the more popular crowdfunding classes on Udemy. You know, we give it to you straight, and we provide operational level details that you can use
is
in
great.
order
This is
to
awesome.
crowdfund.
This is
So
awesome.
we'll post that. Anybody in your network, we will make that class available for free.
Oh, that's
So-
great.
Anybody in the
I
network.
always say
Right.
you can't be
Yours
free.
is
Yeah.
free.
How do we
Absolutely.
contact you for that?
So info at creativeinvest.com, info at creativeinvest.com. Send me an email.
Okay.
I'll send you guys a link also, and you
Okay.
can distribute it
Okay.
to your, for the
Okay.
free class.
That would be great.
That'd be really
That would
great.
be great.
That's good.
We need
that.
this.
Yes.
We need
It's
that.
information. This is what this program is all about.
Yeah.
Getting the information out to the community so we can use it and make our community better.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
So happy to provide that. But that's
Definitely.
one tool that you could use. Now, the other thing, I know, one of the things we do is we kind of track where the economy is overall. And one of my messages to you all is, this is the strongest economy we've seen in 40 years. This is the absolute,
Really?
it is absolutely phenomenal. Unemployment, 3.7%.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Growth is, about 3 to 4%. I mean, you really are seeing a very strong economy. What that means is, if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about buying a house, if you're thinking about changing jobs, now is the time.
Okay. That's
Because
Really?
it's
Everything
not
is
going
on
to
the
last.
ground. That's
It's
true.
not going to last. That's the other thing.
Okay.
And again, you'll know when the economy is
That's why
going to
they're
turn
building so
around
much. I know.
when you see this hack.
Interest rates.
When you see this hack, that will be a sign that the economy is going to turn around. So what you're going to see, you're going to see a major financial institution, probably Wells Fargo, is going to get hacked for a bunch of money. What that's going to do is it's going to cause uncertainty among all of the other banks, because
Right.
they all have ties
They're
to each other, and
vulnerable.
they all know they're vulnerable.
Okay.
That's right.
So, and they haven't done a whole lot about it because they don't know what to do. They won't ask me because why ask the black guy who knows how to fix problems?
Right.
Tell all our
You got the
black
answer.
bankers then, please.
Yeah.
So is this what you do? You make projections as an economist about which way things are going and what's going to happen, sort of like predicting?
That's correct. Economic forecasting.
Okay.
And also using that data and that information to create investment initiatives. So things like crowdfunding, things like looking at Bitcoin, blockchain, that sort of thing, making recommendations about how people can use those tools to do what they want to do. In your case, finance black women-owned businesses or keep track of what's going on. So when I say now is the time, If you're thinking about taking out a loan for a stove, or if you're thinking about creating a
Mortgage
business,
loans,
opening
those type
mortgage loans,
Wow.
30-year fixed rate mortgage loans is what to get, and get it from a credit union. Credit union, not a commercial bank, because of what I just said about commercial banks getting hacked.
Right.
Right.
So you want to avoid that, and the way to avoid that is to go to a credit union. And it's important not to get a variable rate or one of these adjustable rate one, which is what the commercial bankers are going to try to sell you.
Right.
Interest rates are historically low. They're going up. The Fed is taking interest rates up. They probably will increase interest rates 4 times in 2019. So
Wow.
the thing to do is to right now get a loan, 30-year term fixed rate. Fixed rate. 30-year, don't mess with the adjustable. And they're going to try to sell you that because they make a lot of money on that. But 30-year fixed rate loan from a credit union is the way to go. Same thing for your business loans. Fixed rate from a credit union. Get an account with a credit union.
Wow.
Okay.
Have you predicted, I just had one more question, anything that you predicted that kind of came to pass that you want to talk about? or
Absolutely.
share?
June 2016, our economic models predicted that Donald Trump was going to win. And that was based on a combination of economic data and social data. When you saw all this stuff, Brexit, all these people going crazy, and the level of animosity toward black people, started popping up. We knew there was something going on, and our economic models predicted that. We also, I've been doing this for a while now, about 30 years, and we've also been fortunate enough we predicted the financial crisis in 2008. We also predicted
big one.
That was a big one.
That was a big one.
And it was based on the fact that we knew that regulators were not doing their job. So we knew that the banks, as greedy as they were eventually going to shoot themselves in the foot. Eventually. That's what our economic model showed. So look, these guys are greedy. The government normally is supposed to say, hey, you know, be concerned about long-term, about social benefit, about what's going on. The regulators were not doing that. They basically said, hey, you got to do whatever you want. You know, that was out of Bush, George W. Bush, deregulation, all this other sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what led to the financial crisis. And because we are tracking the numbers, and because we're independent, we knew that there was going to be a crisis. We just knew. 2006, we also, in looking at all of this, our model said that, and this is kind of online, it's in a bunch of the articles that we've written. Our model said that eventually people are going to get fed up with this, and they're going to create their own monetary system.
Oh, okay.
This was 2006.
Okay.
So this led to Bitcoin and to the digital currencies. We saw that coming too. Just because it's the same thing. It's not rocket science. It's just honestly looking at what's going on. So we said, given that, and given the fact that the technology allows you to do this now, so you couldn't create your own currency 50 years ago. Didn't have the computers, didn't have the network. You know, it was too hard to do. But now with the computers and the internet, TCP/IP, everybody's network, easy to do, easier to do. You just have to have the motivation to do it. And the failure on the part of the regulators provides that motivation.
Wow.
You know?
So it's important to listen to an economist.
Well, do you have any economic indicators for the election in 2020?
That's right. Well, the answer to that question, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and so that you can answer that question. Because we love good predictions or whichever way it goes, right? But we're going to come right back, and you're watching Four Sisters Live. As you can see, Peggy and Charlene is in here, but we have our lovely Kathy Muhammad and Florence Champagne is here, and we are so happy they're here to sit in for them. But because we are going to continue this conversation, it's a great conversation.
Yes, great.
We're having,
It's great.
and
Educational.
awesome conversation. We need it as women in business. We're women in business.
Yeah, we need it.
So many of us need this, and
we do.
you've been able to come is right on time.
Yeah.
As we move out to 2018, going to 2019,
That's right.
this is what we
2019.
need,
That's what
to
we
get us
need.
going.
Know about
So
that
don't
money.
go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Always sisters, always friends. Let's stay real close till the end, forgiving each other.
for hanging out with us on Forces is Live. This has been an awesome time we've been spending here.
Yes.
We have Mr. William Cunningham, who is an economist. And I want you to introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know who you are, what you do as an economist. Give us some background on you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time being here. So I'm William Michael Cunningham. I'm an economist, went to Howard University undergraduate, then went to University of Chicago out in Chicago, Illinois, to study economics, worked on Wall Street, worked for a couple of insurance companies, worked for Freddie Mac, and came down and learned about the investment side, on the institutional side of the house, so the big institutions, and basically decided that I wasn't really happy with the way that their products met human needs. So very early on, about 1990, I decided to go out and start to create investment vehicles and products and analysis that had more of a concern for humans as opposed to just the money side, just everything all about being a money. Nothing wrong with money, nothing wrong with making money, but as we all know, there are other factors that you have to consider. Otherwise, you get what you have now, which is an over-pollution, over-focus on money, that sort of thing. And human life isn't as good as it could be. Right. So I and a bunch of other people started developing products in that area. That also, in order to do that, part of what you had to do was you had to be able to forecast what was going to come down the pike. You had to take an honest look at what was going on. And so we developed some analysis tools called the fully adjusted return analysis system that we use to do these accurate forecasts, saying, hey, look, this is what's going on, not what these guys are saying, because they're so focused on the money, that they're missing a bunch of other factors. That's how we were able to predict in June 2016 that Trump was going to be elected, how we were able to forecast that there was going to be a financial crisis, how we were able to forecast that there was going to be a call for digital currency or something like that to come in and restore that focus, restore that balance, because the old systems just don't, as we all know, they're just not concerned about people in the way that they should be. But we're, what I'm optimistic about you all. I'm optimistic about events, groups like this. We're seeing a lot of understanding on the part of people in a wide range of communities that the economic system doesn't work as well as it should for them, and they are getting together just like you are and saying we're taking our own destiny in our hands, and we're gonna, I'm not the only one who knows this, or everybody here knows this. So, but the key is not to be disempowered, but it's to be empowered, and you guys have struck it exactly the right way. The way you get empowered most powerfully is in community and in networking with others. And so congratulations to you all. You really did. Is that helpful?
Yeah, yes, it's very helpful.
Were you asking him something?
Yeah, I wanted to know if we
prediction,
back to that. Yeah, when your group, what does the financial forecast predict for 2020?
Well, our forecast says that the economy is going to do very well until 2020. Subject to this hack that I talked about. Yeah. It depends upon kind of when and when that occurs. We've already seen little hacks. That's another way that you're going to get a big hack. It's like cracks in the ice and that lead to a big crack. We've already seen these little tiny. So depending upon the timing of that, we think that the economy is going to do very, very well until 2020, until the re-election of Donald J. Trump. And there is a good chance, I hate to be the one to break the news to you, but there is a chance that he would get reelected. So just keep that in mind. Well, because the economy is doing so well, and because the network of people that support him.
And this is what we thrive off of as a society, as a country, of what's doing well when there's a president in the House, and if the economy is doing well, then it's failure.
feel everything is going good. Oh, this guy, the economy, the money is doing well, so we don't need to make a change. The bottom line is about the money. So as long as that continues to do well, and as long as you see the type of unemployment, 3.7%, the kind of growth that we've seen, the kinds of stock market, record levels, those guys are doing great. Now, what the risk to the forecast is, so we always forecast, we say, look, this is what's likely to happen, but there are risks. There are things that would cause that forecast to change. One of the things that would cause that forecast to change are the hack that I talked about, and there's also a chance that people get dissatisfied with the inequality that we see. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine when I went to New York last week, and I was telling them, look, if things go south, your money will not save you. And I'm talking the big guys. I'm talking the absolute big guys. We've already seen some cracks in the social safety net also, and that is a big risk because part of what this current president does is he excites those negative forces and he brings them, out of the gutter. If I say, I know we're live, but I'm just going to tell you what I think, and brings them up. And we haven't seen a strong way of checking some of those negative forces.
No, we haven't.
If anything, we've seen support for those crazy, negative, un-American, un-Christian kind of attitudes. There's always a risk that could get out of control. Always.
Wow.
Always. And that's one of the risks to the forecast. But as long as the economy does well, as it's doing now, with, as I mentioned, unemployment at record low levels, there's a strong chance that you'll see the current occupant be reelected.
Wow.
Now, the other thing I will say is that the recent elections, with the Democrats coming back and taking control of the House, that's a good sign, but it's not sufficient. That's a necessary, but it's not a sufficient condition. In other words, given the drama that we've been through in 2016, 2017, 2018, the Democrats should have controlled the House, the Senate. What else how bad do you have to get before you can take? And what that shows you is that the systems are in place so that it's hard to make a change. If you look at Florida, look at Georgia, getting rid of black votes, suppressing, and then blaming us for that's an old trick. That's a sixth grade playground trick where you do something and you say that Sally did it, not you. And these guys have become expert at that. So the fact that the Democrats were not able to recognize that, develop tactics and strategies to get around that this past election cycle, is worrisome. That is a problem. Again, how bad how bad of an opponent do you need before you can come in and just take over, the House, the Senate, the state houses, that sort of thing. So that is a problem.
Wow. There's some other investing coins that's out there now. What about the Saudi? Have you ever heard about that?
Yes.
What's happening with that? Because people was running, giving up their homes and giving up all their money in their banks and exhausting all their everything for that.
Most of those other ones are scams. So I will tell you that, if you're going to get involved, the big one, Coinbase.com, the big ones, Ethereum, Bitcoin are the two big ones. If you're going to get involved, those are the places to go. What happened was we saw, and this is all related to the regulatory side, the fact that the financial markets, capital allocation, the way that money is distributed, it's distributed in a way that disadvantages you. And a lot of other people with very good ideas, very good business ideas, can't get the capital. So a lot of them glommed on to some of these digital currencies and used that as a tool for them to get capital, since they couldn't get money out of the banks like they should have been able, or they couldn't go to the securities markets and issue stock. That's reserved for small, mainly white men type of companies. But they don't have all the good ideas, as we know. Part of what happened was people developed this way to
get the capital they needed in order to create the companies that were going to push out on some of these very good ideas. It's a long-winded answer to your question, which is Ethereum, Bitcoin. You know, stick with those two on Coinbase. The others there's a higher risk of fraud with some of the other digital currencies and coins. Big
I
fraud.
want to ask you, as far as an economist, if, you see so many stores that have been institutions that have, gone
out of business.
bankrupt, and
Sears.
Sears, Toys R Us,
Yep.
that kind of thing. What attributes to that? Why are they going out of business? Some people say it's because they're not keeping up with what's current, but does it have to do with something else?
No.
Is that due to shopping online more?
Yeah.
Those are all factors, but the real reason is greed. It wasn't that Sears wasn't making money. Sears was making money, 2%, 3%. But the greedy guys that bought their stock wanted 15%. They wanted 20%. So they said, look, since you can't make us 20% a year, we're just going to shut it down. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's
Is
just,
that
really?
Wow.
and you see that a lot.
That's affecting families.
It's
and other
affecting
people
families.
That,
This greed. Just,
Wow.
you're not making enough money, Not that you're not making money, So that is problematic. Now, normally, in a good situation with a strong central government, the government would come in and say, oh, no, there, you employ 50,000 people, and you're making 1%, so that's worth keeping you open. We won't, let the greedy guys on Wall Street shut you down. But what we have is a government and a culture for a long time that's just so focused on that money, worshiping that money. And as you all know from your studies, given your spirituality side, it's the wrong thing to worship,
Right.
But this culture, that's why you have the guy in the White House. Because he has supposedly a lot of money, he was supposed to be a super smart guy. We know that. This is the other reason why I like the guy. Because now we know that that's not true. All you have to do is look at this guy. And having a lot of money does not mean that you are a smart or a decent human being.
Decent human being.
That
That's
speaks
right.
volumes.
That's right. Well, what about these? Back to the women, black women-owned businesses, and being a decent human being and doing what's right and living in your purpose. I find that a lot are struggling with resources. What's your prediction, or what would you recommend if the economy is doing so well and they have so many good programs out here and purposes and people that are doing well, the women?
Right.
What would you recommend as far as how to tap into some of those resources?
That's a great question, too. I would recommend looking at things like the New Voices Fund. Google it. Look for funds that are New Voices Fund. I think it's newvoicesfund.com. That is the venture capital fund that was started by Richelieu Dennis, the person who owned the Shea Moisture Company. He said he was going to take $100 million of the money that he made off that transaction and create a fund to invest in black women-owned companies. So Google that, look at what's going on with that, and then look at other funds like that. I mentioned Backstage Capital. BackstageCapital.com. Kind of take a look at those resources too. I mentioned what I would do is I would certainly, as I mentioned in the earlier part, I would certainly open an account at a credit union. And I would look at their resources in terms of business financing. I'd look at, and we did a webinar on this, financing for African American women-owned businesses. PayPal has a small business lending program that they started about 6 months ago. And what happens is, because they have all your data and they know what's coming in and what's going out, they have a different data set that they can use to determine whether or not to make you a business loan. And if they see the data, everything lines up right, they'll make you that loan the same day, and they'll put that money in your PayPal account. So there are these new tools that are popping up. So PayPal, small business lending. Look at that.
You teach a lot of this in your
class?
I do in the class on Udemy. Yep. Yep.
Well, I want to ask you, speaking of economy, tell me about the cash crop of marijuana.
Yes, okay.
Now, there are black. Do you know if many black women? I did see a show where I did see one young lady. She was like in her 20s,
Yeah.
and she had started her own cash crop marijuana business. So, can you tell us about that? How that's helping?
That's a new industry, a new side. In terms of, we know it's not a new industry,
No,
but
it's
it's
not.
newly legitimized, newly legalized kind of industry that is really popping up. There's huge opportunity there. The problem is that the way that the governments have decided to move that opportunity forward is by requiring you to have licenses and all of this other sort of stuff.
Okay.
Black people, black women in particular, have a hard time getting those licenses. Now, I will say this. I met the young lady who runs the licensing bureau for marijuana out of the state of Michigan. She's an African-American female. And she has said, bring it in. If you've got people that African-American women who are looking, we would love to have them come to Michigan, and kind of open their business. So there are some bright spots, and I will get her name. I will post her name to. I got a card.
You mentioned that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, on one of the shows, whose show was this? Mary show, I think. Yeah, on the Mary show, the two sisters, Mary, and their sister was opening up. Was it? No. It was the Braxtons.
Oh,
The Braxtons.
Okay.
One of the sisters wanted her to Tony to invest in
marijuana.
And she was like, "Are you out of your mind?" Or was it one of the show? Because no, I'll take it back. I apologize. It was Mary because the sister wanted the Christian sister to invest in it, which was Tina.
Oh, okay.
And she said, "What in the world would I be doing this for?" Because she thought, of course, being a Christian and church, that's like, I'm not touching this.
Right.
But obviously there is something that would not, definitely, just like your Christianity.
Right.
In that respect, it's an investment of a business.
That's right. And it has certain medicinal benefits and properties that you can't find with other substances. So, it makes sense to certainly look at this. And,
But how does that work? That's the thing. How would that work?
In terms of investing?
Yeah, investing, into that.
There are a number of groups. There are a couple of black women groups that are involved in the marijuana industry. And again, I'll post a card kind of online. I'll make sure I send you guys a card. I think the way you do it is you get involved in those groups and you learn from others who are currently in the industry.
With that, I think the country was more of a medical, from that perspective.
Right, right.
Investing in it from that.
From the medical.
Right, because there's not so much as saying we just want to do this because it's commercial. You go out there and you're doing it because it's from that illegal side point of view, but it was basically coming from the
medical
standpoint.
It has a lot of medicinal
and it has
qualities.
From that perspective.
I would encourage you all to get involved. Part of the issue is that we always sometimes get locked out of these things.
Yeah, we do.
And now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to really get involved in that industry, I think. There are a number of funds that have been created. There are a number of resources, a number of groups that are out there. And by getting involved, you find people like this young lady in the state of Michigan who is in charge of their medical marijuana licensing effort,
Well, that's why I find some organizations like Sister for Sisters Network is so important, because it could bring women together, it could bring us together, and like as just an offshoot of Sister for Sisters Network, we could have our own company, dealing with marijuana or dealing with another organization, or helping your sister. This is as an investment.
Right.
And the goal is for this, I think this radio show is so important because it puts the information out there. People start to think. We have to come together and think outside the box. Yeah. Look at what's going on. Like you were saying, what are the predictions? What's the forecast? Don't have your head in the sand. Pay attention.
Right. Pay attention and collaborate.
Collaborate.
Work with one another. Yeah, absolutely.
Because how many times? Yeah, because how many times have we said, "Oh, oh, wow, that was a great idea, but we missed it.
We missed it. Do
it.
that a lot. People
Yeah.
do that a
Sure
lot.
we
You
do.
know,
Sure we
a
do.
lot. And then
Yeah.
you see people.
Yeah,
You know,
we could have had a lot more investments and monies and things if we would have paid attention to what we need to do and not just sleep on
Yeah.
an opportunity.
And work together and not say, I don't know what to do. Like you were
Right,
saying,
right.
you know, contact some people. Do
And,
Google.
and you're right. It is a good group to belong to bring in
Yes.
people like Bill
Yes.
to kind of help us navigate through some of this because we do miss those opportunities and say, shucks, you know, I should have or you know jumped on the bandwagon, but we really don't have the know-how. And
Right,
so
we don't.
this expertise coming into groups like Sisters for Sisters Network
It's
is
awesome.
so necessary
Well,
and
I'm
it's
happy to-
so important. So we'll know what to do,
well, I'm
so to
happy to help.
speak.
I'm happy to.
Well, you know that we're part of the Sisters for Sisters Network, Inc., founded by our lovely Peggy Morris. And she's not in today. We have other Sisters for Sisters Network, Kathy Muhammad and Florence is sitting in, Champagne is sitting in for Charlene, and we're so happy you all decided to hang out with me.
Oh,
today.
absolutely.
My
It's an
pleasure. It's
honor.
always great.
I am so happy you all stayed because we want to continue to be educated.
Yes, we
Yes.
do.
We need to be educated. This platform is to educate our community of women and our men as well and our youth because we need to grow financially. We need to
Financially.
grow. We need to make it happen. I think we're just sick and tired of being sick and tired of
That's
being the
right.
last and least and the lost
Right.
of what needs to happen in our economy.
Right.
So we thank you for educating us,
Thank
bringing
you.
your expertise to the table.
Yeah, we do.
We are going to
Appreciate it a
talk
lot.
about you tomorrow and have you come so that we can deal with the you to me, you know, and have you
Yes.
see what schedule. I know Peggy already knows. It's just a matter of getting you in,
Excellent.
and that's going to happen. We're
Thank
going to
you
make
very
sure.
much.
One last thing, because we are going to wind down on our show. What is happening in that Black Enterprise? Because I know some things are happening. You've been featured in so many magazines.
Oh, great.
You
Well, I
travel
appreciate
across
that.
the country. I did see you on the Capitol Hill.
Correct.
You were talking about some things with our housing community in that area. So you are pretty much in a lot of things that you're doing.
Right.
And you are just a man that got all the money.
No, I have a lot of knowledge. I wish I had
I know
all
all
of
the
it.
money. But no, the Black Enterprise, and we'll close with that.
So Black Enterprise has really stepped up their coverage of Black women businesses also. They've done a couple of articles, one on the funds that have been created, the $370 million that has been created in venture capital funds, specifically looking to finance Black women businesses. And then we did a webinar on these efforts, kind of what's going on, because we noticed it. We noticed it was kind of unusual. We saw all of this activity. We saw, in part because of my sister Stephanie, in part because of kind of seeing things like Sister for Sister, you know, network kind of grow. So we made that knowledge available to Black Enterprise. They started doing research. We started doing research, and they picked up on this trend. So they've done 2 articles, one on the $370 million that the venture capitalists have raised, Black venture capitalists have raised. And then the second article was on the how to finance a Black woman-owned business in 2018 webinar that we had done, where we outlined all of these trends, the 56 billion, the 400,000 employees that Black women businesses employ, you know, that sort of thing. So we've been providing our research to Black Enterprise, and to their great credit, they have kind of picked up on it. They say, "Hey, you're right. There's something going on here.
That's great.
Let's cover this. Let's get some stories out about that." So that's what's going on.
Where can you find the articles?
I will email this to you also, but it's on blackenterprise.com. Google William Michael Cunningham, blackenterprise.com.
Great.
William Michael Cunningham, Black Enterprise. You'll see the articles on the webinars and also the articles on the $370 million that's been raised by Black venture capital so far this year.
Okay, great.
Wow. All this is political, but it's all good. We thank you so
No,
much,
thank
Mr.
you.
William, for coming
Thank
in.
you. I appreciate you.
Come in
Yeah,
and
yeah. What a
educate us.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a
you.
pleasure. It was awesome.
I've got another boost
Yeah, me too.
energy because of it, you know, and I'm encouraged.
Good.
You're showing us the money.
You should.
Yeah,
You
okay.
should be encouraged. You guys are.
Yes, indeed.
You guys are
so,
really rocking and
ladies
rolling.
and gentlemen, you have been watching Four Sisters Live, and we are so happy that you hang out with us and hanging out with us. Continue to watch us, and we want you all to have a happy, happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey.
Yeah.
You cooking?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Hey, who, me? Oh no, I'm not.
Ross is an awesome cook. You
Yeah,
cook?
I'm going to
Oh,
Philly.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I gotta
not me.
cook for my mom because
Okay.
she don't cook like she used to. So
Oh,
she's
yeah.
up there in age. So yeah, I'll be cooking.
Oh, well.
I'll just
Whatever.
be eating.
You guys going to be eating.
Yeah.
I'm
What
with
you
you.
doing
I'm
for the
with you.
holiday, Mr. Cunningham?
I am going over to my sister Stephanie Flood's, and I am going to eat. I'll bring something. I'll bring some pie. I'd like to get. I might get a pie. I might get a pie.
I want
Take so I'll show up with something. I won't show up empty-handed, but I'll go over with the family.
Well, whatever you're doing, be safe, have fun, and we'll see you next week. God bless you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Always sisters.